Hello, it's oral hygiene, oral hygiene. I can't
Horrible
say it.
eye dream.
This is the horrible eye dream where we
Hey,
talk about caught films, experimental films, and such. It's a caught film. This is a caught film, right?
oh yeah.
This is
Oh man,
a pretty
definitely.
quintessential caught film. I mean, that wasn't really a question. I mean, come on. It's the Wild
Yeah.
Angels. Yeah. It's Easy Rider 0.5 basically.
That's true. Yeah.
This is Matt here today. Andrew is there now.
Hi, I'm Andrew. Hi.
Actually, you're technically there a few split seconds ago. We never experience time as it happens.
No,
You
never.
can't you can't really live in the now.
No. Oh, there it was.
You
Damn.
live in the slightly then. Yeah.
Yeah. I always forget. There it went again. I keep
This
missing it.
movie's way back when though. Tell the folks what it's about, what happens with these wild angels.
All right, man. So this is The Wild Angels, 1966, directed by Roger Corman for American International Pictures. So this came out 3 years before Easy Rider, but they share one of the same leading men, Peter Fonda. Actually, this one it got its star power from the fact that Peter Fonda was a son of Henry Fonda, and that his co-star Nancy Sinatra, wait for it, the daughter of Frank Sinatra.
Don't mess with
So,
her, you end up with concrete boots.
oh yeah, man, definitely not. Yeah, it's like say Hell's Angels versus Frank Sinatra. That should have been what they made.
Like Ocean's 11 and the Wild Angels going neck to neck. That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
So yeah, also Bruce Dern is one of the biker gang. He plays the loser. Uh, that was Diane Ladd, who I guess either was his wife at the time they made this or shortly after. And Laura Dern is their daughter, but she's not in the movie. And yeah, they play Hell's Angels in Los Angeles. And the movie is about their struggle to just being free to do what they want to do without being hassled by the man. And what they want to do is wear Nazi regalia and beat up Mexicans.
Yeah. And then of course we get into the whole thing where one of their own is killed and they hold the world's best funeral ever.
That funeral, I have to tell you, because obviously I saw this when I was a kid. We'll get into that, I'm sure, that aspect of my personal history with bikers and motorcycles. But I saw this when I was a kid, and that funeral scene disturbed the ever loving crap out of me. And I guess we'll talk about that when we get to it as well.
Yeah. I've well, sorry, it makes me that'll sound far right. Like I've sort of lost my knee-jerk reaction to a swastika living in Japan because they're
Oh,
all over the
sure.
maps and stuff, going the other direction. That thing there's
Yeah.
every horrible symbol, well not everyone, but a lot of the horrible symbols used to mean something completely different. But if you put it on a in a white circle surrounded by red, you're making a specific statement.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I wouldn't necessarily say that the Hells Angels are Nazis, but it's kind of the way a lot of bikers used like the Confederate flag symbolism too. They just do it because they know it fucks with people. Like, I don't know a better word to say. They do it because it upsets people. So they'll do anything that's going to just be like outside of what is accepted.
I guess it upsets people more and more though. In the '60s, it was like, wow, that's bad taste, and then we'd let Prince Harry kind of sort of get away with it 15 years ago, right?
Yeah, God, I remember that.
Yeah, it's even more of a raw deal now, which just makes sense, of course. But
Yeah.
try doing that now. Well, people do try doing that now, but it's less and less socially fitting, right?
Yeah,
So
it's kind of come back around. The people that have embraced it are definitely closer to the idealism of the Nazis. Whereas in the time of this movie, it was more just to kind of razz people and to call, somebody will be like, Hell's Angels just want to fight everybody. And so anything they could do to get someone to come over and start a fight with them, they're gonna do it.
I was just reading a Beatles book. Have you ever heard of the Hells Angels incident with the Beatles?
Yes.
Yeah, or George Harrison was in San Francisco, said, "Yeah, just come on over sometime." So it was like 40 of them came and took
Yeah.
over the offices for like a month.
Yeah. Yeah. No, most people's awareness of the Hells Angels and history of music context is Altamont Speedway.
Oh, right. I guess I really do think Ken Kesey, you
You do?
know.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
see that.
that comes,
Yeah.
and then there's the Hunter Thompson. He wrote that Hell's Angels book,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah,
Did,
yeah.
yes. Yeah, it's
So
pretty good.
yeah, but in this one, that's a weird thing. I'm like, how obviously it's somewhat whitewashed. It's like a mid-level Hollywood production, right? But
Yes,
then it's
yes.
like weirdly not whitewashed, probably because it's 1966.
Well, and because there's actual Hell's Angels in the movie, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So they like, you if you're making a biker movie in Los Angeles, if you didn't involve them with it, they would involve themselves. So they got them on board early,
Oh,
so they
okay.
actually are credited with having written parts of the movie. And definitely, yeah, they are in all those party scenes and the bike scene. The motorcycles are gorgeous in this movie.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I guess you probably can recognize that more than I can, but like
Well,
even
in
as
old
music
biker
fans,
movies.
we get Dylan's Triumph and stuff in the
Yeah,
shot.
no, oh, I
We
love
get
the
a
music in this movie. I love the music.
well, I put it. I don't know if you had time to read my notes because I sent it like 10 minutes before we started, but I did. Man, I really did just rip the score off when I did the music for your Humpenstein movie.
But that's exactly the sound I wanted. The really fuzzed out guitars. I mean, and that percussion especially. At one point, and I think it may be the funeral scene, which, let's face it, that is the ultimate scene in this movie and almost any movie from this era. There's a guy with a big conga drum walks in.
Yeah.
Then of course you hear this manic conga drum for, like, I don't know, the next 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, it's the drum circle, man. A drum circle of one.
Yeah, I think all it did was add to the madness.
It's
Just sounded like like the soundtrack to an attack in a jungle movie.
I haven't seen this maybe for 10 or more years. I tend to go for the trip for my Corman Fonda Dern fix, right? Which we did
Oh
here a
yeah.
few weeks ago. And of
Yeah,
course,
that was after this.
I will probably think of watching Easy Rider before this, although there are some ways I actually like this one quite better. But just
Oh, I'd
well,
like to hear.
if
Yeah,
you
I'd
want,
like to hear.
yeah. Sorry, I was prefacing things there. I in my mind I had like put the whole funeral scene like at the beginning of the movie for some reason.
Hmm. I
So
just didn't remember anything that happened after it. So that was it for me. I left the room.
not much happens after. It's just everyone leaves except for old Blues digging a grave waiting for the fuzz to show up.
Yeah, and that's a great scene though. I know Easy Rider had like that times 200, but it was kind of neat to see Fonda doing that because from what I read, and this was from that great Roger Corman book, it not the How I Made 100 Movies in Hollywood, but the more recent hardback that they did. Um, According to them, he didn't want Fonda, but the guy, I think originally he wanted Bruce Dern to play Blues. But then something about Fonda, they're like, okay, well, he's a better, I guess he's a better name to carry the movie. But he was like, don't let him take his sunglasses off ever because he looks weak. Because if Fonda does have that, that kind of quality about him. He looks kind of plaintive. He doesn't look like a tough guy.
Yeah, I wonder how would this movie play if they had flipped those two roles.
Oh my God. I think Loser would have died way sooner.
Yeah, that's never a good omen if you're coming in as loser, I guess.
The Loser.
Yeah, the loser. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I guess everyone gets a nice nickname. So
Yeah. I didn't really dig the biker nicknames for this. I think the most realistic one they had in terms of my experience with it was Nancy Sinatra's character's name, Mike.
yeah, that's fine. That's a Star Trek Discovery reference, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. The first time they did it, I wonder if that was so in someone's mind. It's like, hey, let's get because the thing was, let's give her a dude name,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
maybe someone's like, hey, I like the Wild Angels. I don't know. That's a far reach, I know.
I'm hoping that's true.
No, the things I okay, obviously Easy Rider is a better movie. But yeah, it doesn't really have the just whacked out biker party action this one has.
No, I mean, Easy Rider is a more of an indie film. In fact, I think Dennis Hopper brought it to Roger Corman, and Roger Corman obviously loved it. But Sam Arkoff, who was the head of AIP there, did not want Dennis Hopper to direct. He's like, no way.
That
So they
isn't
just
that isn't a nuts judgment. I mean,
yeah. So they took it, to Columbia Pictures, and that's like everybody knows the rest. The
but
rest is
yeah,
just.
it's some skinny dipping and depressing communes in Easy Rider, right? Where
I
it's
mean,
full on
yeah,
biker party here.
better soundtrack, but yeah, no, this is be the movie the bikers would want to watch more so
That's
than
that's
Easy
kind of
Rider.
I get my. It feels more like a biker movie in Easy Rider. Easy Rider's got
Uh,
nice bikes, but this is more the biker movie. And
yeah.
again, the soundtrack is better in Easy Rider, but this one's like more like it's original for the movie and just has the exploitation sound where Easy
Oh
Rider
yeah.
has like a real movie sound, but you kind of want the exploitation sound sometimes.
Yeah, if someone was going to be like, what's a biker movie, I mean, this is more of what I'd show them. Any movies with Bury Me an Angel, The Naked Angel, any like that. The only thing I would say that Wild Angels has over some of those is that when they encounter like terrain that's not a road, um in some of those old biker movies, you can actually see them chasing each other. And when they get to the woods or a dirt road or whatever, they just dress a dirt bike like a motorcycle. And you can easily tell they're just on dirt bikes now with saddlebags. It's so stupid. But Wild Angels doesn't do that. It's actually pretty impressive. Peter Fonda was pretty great at riding that motorcycle.
Well, yeah, this is when the Corman machine was on full blast, so there's not much exploitation drag in this movie. Like
Yeah.
it does mostly keep moving pretty well.
No, it does. It's a pretty tight movie, and I think for the most part the performances are really good. Like it's I could see why they would have picked Dern first, because I mean he is, I think, a better actor than Peter Fonda.
Well, he would have had more pathos in the role because Blues just seems like, well, real stoned because Fonda was probably real stoned.
Yeah, and he mostly is kind of monosyllabic. I mean, I think Fonda wanted to play him as a guy who's of few words, and he often will answer the question with a same sentence, like, he'll just repeat himself rather than expound.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't that far off from Captain America. I guess you added a little more like hippie vibe and Easy Rider, but
No, yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, the thing there is they were like trying to take the personalities of the birds a bit, I think, for Easy Rider, where here it is just, like whatever he
Yeah.
constructed for this role.
Plus, Dennis Hopper could not ride a motorcycle.
um, let's see what I got here. Oh yeah, I had to make a early note, which we'll have to explain for Corbin Rogers, but his films are so boring.
Yeah. How little we knew, how much we knew.
Yeah, but yeah, when we were kids, we'd make the movie posters of Corbin Rogers and think of it like the most boring movie concepts possible, not knowing that Andy Warhol had basically already done all that.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, no. For those who don't know, Matt and I, when we were kids, we were amateur filmmakers, backyard filmmakers, front yard filmmakers, every room in the house filmmakers. And we were what? I was probably 12, so that would have made you like 10,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And so yeah, I pulled the name Roger Corman out of the back of my mind because that was a name that, my dad and I watched a lot of those movies on TV, so that was like a name that I knew, and I just flipped it and called him Corman Rogers. So instead of making really exciting things, our character made the boringest movies ever. And didn't he, in interviews about his films, fall asleep?
Right. Just like, yeah, well, I was like, Corbin,
He
are
was
you still there?
he was like the human equivalent of the sloth from Zootopia a little bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, basically, the sloth didn't fall asleep though, and he was a fast driver, right?
No, you just thought he was like, just falling asleep mid sentence.
Right. What else do I have here? Oh yeah, Dern's last. She didn't seem that sharp, which was 5 points against anything feminist, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
with
well, that's true.
Lad's role, I forget what the name of that character was, but
Yeah, I don't remember what Diane Ladd's character name was either. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, she looked great on camera though, and I think she did hold her own with Dern.
Oh, her acting wasn't bad. Just the character was. It was she
Yeah,
wasn't bad. She was just drawn that way, you know.
yeah, no, she made. I mean, she awful things happened to her, like really disturbingly awful things. Again, funeral scene. We'll get to it, but
Yeah.
like, some of the choices that she makes, afterward, it's just like, uh I had trouble understanding her reasoning, but I don't think I was supposed to think that much about it either.
No, no, that's the thing. When we're watching it now, it sticks out, and when you watch it in 1966, it was just like things that happen in movies.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
Like, yeah, that's the weird thing, I guess, about making exploitation films now. It's like if you go completely real, you're gonna end up with something that's gonna get you into and that people are not going to dig.
Yeah, no, it some of them are really kind of push that envelope. Sean Baker is a good example of that kind of filmmaking where, people are like, maybe not to that great of an extent, but like Larry Clark was maybe in the 90s and early 2000s.
Right. So let's see what else I got. Oh, here's a bad note. This place is a mecca for bikers. Yeah. So I guess there is a mecca in California. Didn't know that. I did. What was it? I think I mentioned before. I stumbled into this weird like Death Valley town called, or it was between Owens and Death Valley, called Darwin, and it's like one of the most bizarre places I've ever been. I think it's 50
What was
people. It's
what was
called
it like?
Darwin. It was about 50 people live there.
Mhm.
Tiny town in the desert. And then we drive off a couple more miles, and then we started like exploring the abandoned mine, which was probably a terrible idea, but you know,
Ooh,
it was
yeah.
fun. It was fun.
I'm perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine.
But no, we went in a little bit, and it's like, hey, there's a shaft that never ends, going
Oh,
straight
great.
down.
Yeah.
So
Portal to hell.
probably, yeah, it probably was a portal to hell, and it looked like like outside of it looked like it was abandoned like 1890 or something. It was like crazy.
Yeah. It's like if if no snakes will go near it, then yeah, probably no.
Yeah, it was Death Valley. It's too hot for the snakes, but it was January, so it's actually quite comfortable.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, January Valley. I started thinking about some proto Mad Max watching this one. I mean, they don't, they get all the cops, but they don't get like a badass interceptor. You got one cop taking on a biker gang. That's very Mad Max.
Yeah, it was. Oh man. You would think that the last one would just like run away.
But he had the cojones. Yeah. So
Yeah. And Dern takes off with one of their bikes. They think that this Mexican this repair shop run by these Mexican dudes, they think that they're the ones that stole Loser's bike. And so they go over there wanting to retrieve it and think that it's been stripped and this all, they're like, oh, this is one of the parts. I recognize this screw. It's just totally hokey. And Fonda calls him a racial slur, and then they fight each other. And the cops busted up, and then Dern, yeah, he just hops on the police motorcycle. He runs around the other side. That
well,
was badass.
he does die as a result of doing that though.
I mean, in a way, he injured. Like, didn't the cops shoot him in the back,
I think
or
Winnie
somebody
was on
shot
the
him?
bike. I think he was on the bike when he got
He was
shot.
on the
So
bike, and he gets shot. And so, yeah, he starts to kind of, milk was a bad choice. He begins his vision begins to blur, and I think maybe he sees the blockade up ahead and decides to screw it, and he just goes off the road and eats it.
yeah, basically. I did make the note. Where was it? Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, of course Bruce Dern's acting is fine, but I was like, most of his acting in this movie is just grunting or playing Bernie.
Well, he does that for most of his role, except Drive, he said. But
Yeah.
for most of the time, yeah.
So just a grunter. But yeah, he obviously has what point in the movie does he die? 30 minutes in or something?
Yeah, he does, but he comes. We see him again
Yeah, a lot.
a lot. Oh God.
Yeah. That yeah, what a loser the loser is, right? Just getting dragged off from your job, getting fired, and then killed.
Well, I mean, he quit. I mean, he mouthed off to the boss, and I think maybe threw shit at him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that'll usually do it, I guess. But
Yeah, but no, it's true. That's the whole thing, and I've never seen any sort of analysis of this movie, but there is the whole ethos of freedom and the whole thing of the bikers claiming that that's what they want.
yeah.
But yet they seem to not want it really for anyone else. They seem to want, them to live rather than just free as human beings, free of consequence for their actions and free of accountability for all the damage that they cause. They are, it's up to you to decide if they're any better than the kind of oppressive authorities that they claim to despise.
Well, yeah, it's the whole Aleister Crowley thing, do as thou wilt, but you need to add
Yes.
to that, but don't be an asshole.
Oh God, and they are. That's the thing about this movie. Like, can you get behind them as protagonists? Are you on their side?
Of course not. They're terrible. I so
It's a
almost
tough sell, isn't it?
yeah, almost ironically, but I'm like, it kind of does fit. I was just thinking of because I watch so much Star Trek with the idea of the whoever's in command sometimes has to send people to their death, and Blues is having a existential crisis because he kind of sent the loser to his death.
I mean, in a way, because he was really pushing things. He was, what do they say? He was definitely like accelerating things. There's a better word, but I can't find it. He was
Escalate.
escalating. That's right. He was definitely an agitator because, you know, he was the one that came in accusing people of stealing.
Right.
And
He's the one that's like, let's go get your bike right now.
right now, yeah.
And
And
then he
why
was
that
like,
was the most important thing in life at that moment, I don't know.
and we don't need to go after a loser. He'll be fine because he knows how to deal with his shit, which he didn't this particular
Yeah,
day.
yeah, because they're starting to worry about him. His girlfriend definitely starting to worry about him. The gang all come back. The loser does not.
Yeah.
And they're like, aren't you worried about him? No. He he can't he knows how to handle the man. No, actually, he's all like with his arms left of him somewhere in a ditch. And I don't remember how it was that they came upon that they were able to view his body and then like in the morgue and then run off with it.
Well, I think they just ran off with it because it seemed like the whoever was, it wasn't like a normal, like it wasn't like the Big Lebowski's mortician or funeral director that was very, you know, professional. This guy seemed to be a little sketchy, backwoods sort of
Yeah, I
like.
guess it's the where they were. Yeah.
Did they not like bribe him a bit, like pay him off to get the body?
I think they may have. I think they may have because look the other way.
Because
And
that's where they're making the deal because they're like, okay, 350 is like, I could do it for 450, 400, that's final, they're like making a bribe haggle.
that was what it was. Because otherwise, how do a bunch of bikers on loud ass motorcycle, although they brought a van, um, get away with taking a body out from under where the cops are totally involved in this, and in fact, I think what happened was Mike comes down to be questioned by the police and gets them out of there in time for, unless I'm mixing it up with another movie. And then while the cops are with her out of the morgue, then the bikers come in the back way and get him out.
Something like that. Yeah, I don't have the heist
Yeah.
mechanics down, but
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
they're
it was
definitely.
more than just we run in, pay you, and get out. I think there
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
few different. Their plan was actually pretty good. But
So then they roll out to the ski resort, which I was like, wow, ski resorts around here like look the same. That's kind of interesting. Look just like the ones in the mountains around me. So
huh,
so I
yeah.
guess they all look the same.
I mean, why not? I mean, it has to be something. It has to be something people would recognize as a ski place.
Yeah, I guess it's that like fake alpine look, right?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So that leads us to the funeral,
My
which
God. What do you feel when you watch this funeral? Because, in short, listeners, what happens is, you know, losers in there wrapped in the swastika flag. All the Hells Angels are there for the service. They've gotten a minister for it to deliver the eulogy, and it just descends into absolute anarchy. So, I mean, did you find it funny, or, I mean, did it bothers me still.
it makes me think of the opening scene for the even more obscure Just for the Hell of It, which
Yes.
also involves a rather unfortunate rape scene.
Yeah, that's a Herschel Gordon Lewis, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that one has the fantastic song Destruction in it. And I think I saw that before I saw this, weirdly enough. So when I saw the funeral scene, it really made me think this is that like keyed up even more.
Yeah, this has got uh I mean, it's borderline necrophilia. They've got definite gang rape that goes on in here. In fact, it's the woman whose boyfriend is lying there dead.
Yeah, my
Uh,
note was funeral roofies and rape for the mourning girl is super bad form.
it's terrible. Because first they run off the preacher because Fonda's just like they're starting to boo him. They don't
No,
like
they
anything.
tie up the preacher.
Yeah, they tie. That's right. They tie him up
they
and they
they
smash
keep
the
him for
church
like
up.
yeah, they keep him for the party.
That's right, because he's in there once they're all gone. I think still.
Yeah, he
Um,
gets a bottle, gets himself free, and uses the phone as soon as he can.
yeah, they just destroyed this whole thing, and Hell's Angels, of course, love to do this sort of thing, and I imagine some actual alcohol was definitely involved. And so the loser, Bruce Stern's character, he's lying there in the for the open viewing, and they just put a helmet on him with a swastika, and they prop him up and put a joint in his mouth, and it's Weekend at Bernie's.
And sunglasses, just so we don't have so he looks like he belongs to
Yeah,
the party.
yeah,
So
and Dern plays a great corpse. I mean, he really just, no matter what they do to him, his expression stays the same. I mean, it's frightening. I mean, just the idea. You remember this movie Stone Cold? Brian Bosworth, Lance Henriksen is the biker gang leader. Um,
I know of it.
it's like a early
Yeah.
90s, yeah, or late 80s. This has got a Henriksen was one of the great biker leaders in movie history with this movie, and I do consider it Stone Cold to be a biker movie, although Bosworth is an undercover cop. But yeah, there's a scene where William Forsythe, great character actor, is killed, and they give him a sort of a Viking funeral. And so, rather than be propped up like Dern is in this, Forsythe's character is lit on fire on his motorcycle. His corpse is burnt up on his motorcycle.
That's a
I I remember that just going, I don't like this either. Like, what is it with this stuff?
and it turns out I was just thinking about Stone Cold Steve Austin anyway. So
I know this was not one
yeah.
of his. No, Bosworth is pretty good. I think he did one other movie that I saw, but yeah, it's just more of this disregard for, I think, and it's right in line with their belief system.
What would they have done if Blues didn't show up for the funeral?
I
Speaking
don't
of
really
his
know.
escalating skills,
Yeah, but
they
I
wouldn't
mean,
have had a good speech maker to rant like an idiot at the priest, which
okay, two
as we know
questions.
makes for a fantastic sound clip. But
Yeah, I was gonna say one, what album begins with that monologue?
Primal Screams loaded,
Okay, and
Screamadelica.
what do you feel like that speech is a little out of character for him, given that he's so like semi nonverbal throughout the movie? I mean, he does get in arguments and stuff, but maybe it's not. What do you think of the speech in terms of his character, but what do you think of his performance there?
Um, Again, it's hard for me to say because I was so used to hearing it in the Primal Scream song before I saw this movie. So when it came up, it's like, oh, there it is.
Right. So it
Those
doesn't seem. either out of character or just poorly delivered?
Probably both, but it's again me coming in from the like, here is the sound clip. It's like when you're watching again maybe a Star Trek, and it's one of those episodes with one of the memes that shows up everywhere, and you're like, oh, there's the meme.
Yeah,
It like
true.
doesn't really work in context anymore because it stands out.
Yeah, and for me, that I mean, that moment, that whole scene is just really kind of pivotal, because is Fonda, if is the monologue supposed to be appealing to the young people that the intended audience for the film, or are they sort of through his monologue kind of ridiculing his whole everything?
I'm going to go for ridicule because I see the funeral scene as being basically the ultimate exploitation scene,
Yeah,
so far that it doesn't necessarily sit well with people.
yeah. No, it. I mean, I watched it not long ago when you said you wanted to do this movie, and I was like, "Yep, it is still freaky. Like, I still don't like this."
Because we just did Switchblade Sisters, right? And that doesn't, I mean, that's like a perfect exploitation film, but it doesn't have a scene that's just that exploitative for what, like 20 full-on minutes.
Yeah, you don't really get that. I mean, you have some good action, and definitely, God, whenever it was that they break out it's not a tank, but you know, the
I mean, I
the
think
army.
maybe the scene itself, just it actually is a filmed Hell's Angels party, basically, right?
I mean, just going by documentaries I've seen of Hell's Angels and showing footage of real Hell's Angels and other stuff. Hell's Angels on Wheels, good example. Yeah, to me, I'm like, that's basically it, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's where that scene just stands out. It's very iconic and is the most exploitative thing you'll see outside of something that's just like, like a snuff film or something,
Yeah, no, you're
which they
totally.
try to make it look like a snuff film as well. So,
Uh, I mean, you're really in it. It has that verite quality that people back then associated with, yeah, documentary and with reality and with newsreel and things like that. I mean,
I mean, I guess
it's
that's
not
why I
cinema.
mistook that for being at the beginning of the movie because that basically is the movie. The rest of it isn't bad at all, but that's what you come away with in the end.
Yeah, and there's another, once they get to the cemetery, you're like, oh God, what are they going to do here? Because they do have a procession, and the bikes all go in line to the cemetery, and they try to bury Loser, but it doesn't really work out so great.
Yeah, you wonder if they're going to start like digging up other bodies or something at that point, right?
Well, I like what happens here though, because the Mexican guys, they've followed them there, they see them there. This is the guys that they came and started shit with earlier in the movie, unfounded shit, just born of racism. And then so they're having their moment with Loser, and they're trying to lower him down into the ground, and one of those dudes just comes in and just throws, like, what is it, like a brick?
Yeah, something like
he
that.
hits he hits Blues or someone right as they're lowering him in, so the coffin kind of falls. And just, I mean, it just, and then they have this huge rumble in the cemetery. It's not as um like, it's not as ultimate as the funeral scene, but it's definitely like rumble
Right,
in the cemetery
right.
with
That was a
racist bike.
see. That's what I'm saying. That was a filmed fight, whereas the funeral scene seems that we actually got like a proper Hell's Angels party
Exactly.
on film. Warts and all. I mean, some of
Yeah.
it's staged, but I mean, it happened right at the parties themselves. I'm sure. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we can at the end talk about, or at least my experience with actual biker parties, like,
well, okay. I guess we'll roll on that because honestly, I only have a few more minutes anyway. So let's get into your biker experience.
Okay, well, I don't think this has ever come up in the show before, but I was raised by bikers in the late 70s and early 80s. My parents and their close friends, their best friends, were a gang, a biker club, rather. You don't say gang. In Doraville and Chambly, Georgia, called the Family Dog. And we had a woman in there named Ralphie. So that's where I thought the Mike thing was authentic. And my dad's bikes that he built did get stolen at one point, and they were stolen like we know who did it, and the guy was named Coco because he was into cocaine and drugs. And so, yeah, the guy just while my mom was in the hospital having open heart surgery, this guy and his buddies knew my dad wasn't going to be home, that nobody was going to be in the house, and it turned out there actually were people in the house. My aunt, who was like they're asleep while my brother and I were asleep, and we were very little. Yeah, Coco and his buddies, not other guys in the club, um, they came and loaded up my dad's bikes and just drove off with them. They were eventually found, and they were stripped, and it was pretty bad. But yeah, there was I mean, the parties were, we have a pool table, rock and roll music, lots of beer. I saw a little bit of drugs. But yeah, because of movies like The Wild Angels, the public gets this perception of that all bikers are the Hells Angels and therefore are criminals, and they're frightening and they swap wives. And you don't know how many people I talk to that just assume that about my family and their friends. And so there was a petition that some of the neighbors signed to force us to move. And they brought it to the door one day. Yeah. Of course, my dad told them to stick it up their ass, and, in true fashion. But yeah, there's lots of stories within that, and through the years of growing up that way. But I think I got the message of individualism, which I think is the only like kind of inspiring part of it.
Yeah, there is quite a motorcycle culture in Japan, and it's funny because they'll do all the leathers and stuff. I guess it happens in the States too, somewhat, but going for the full regalia. But they're actually salarymen in a Tokyo office all week. So
yeah, I think that ended up being kind of what, because the biker of that era, Hell's Angel, I mean, they still exist, but it's definitely considered a criminal organization. And then clubs like my dad's, they were of the period, because once Harley Davidson had themed restaurants and clothes for your dog, I mean, it was pretty much over.
yeah. So we definitely see that here. Although I did, notice, like in America, it seems like maybe it's changed back, but especially like 20 years ago, it seemed like the Yamaha and Kawasaki, kind of like speedy motorcycles were becoming more popular. Whereas
they were for your weekend warriors, what they call them. They
yeah,
bring their bike out on a trailer instead of riding it from
yeah.
somewhere.
But the funny thing is, at the same time in Japan, the Harleys and the Triumphs were becoming super popular.
Yeah, yeah. The Harley, the Triumph. My grandpa had an Indian. That was like I mean, the shit wouldn't start. It was a piece of junk.
But no, I don't think I've ever been on a motorcycle. I didn't learn to ride a bicycle until I was 25.
Yeah. Gosh, first time I was on a motorcycle, I was bungee corded to my dad's chest. There was no car seat for a motorcycle.
Right.
That was his transportation.
One of my fun facts is I was licensed to drive a bus before I learned to ride a bicycle.
It's pretty raw. It's pretty wild. But I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, there weren't many places in Doraville to actually ride a bicycle that wouldn't like semi get you killed. I mean, it was not set up for it.
Yeah, that's why I never had one. But
Yeah, no, it wasn't smart. I got hurt a lot.
And I wiped down Japan a few times, especially earlier on, right? When
Oh God, yeah, we went over some of those stories here on the podcast.
Right, the shredded clothes and bleeding. I guess I should probably take an hour or two off now.
Yeah, I remember that. That wasn't too long ago.
No. I guess we should wrap this one up today. So what you got up? You're getting back to filming, is it? Is it almost filming time?
Yeah, we're about to release our next mixtape, which that's what our DVDs are for sale at gonzorific.com, GONZORIFFIC. And I'm readying to make my second ever feature film this year.
Got a name?
The working title is Phantom Janet. And we use the opening scene from Phantom Planet, but you're going to have to wait to figure out how we use it.
Okay. As for this one, it is Aural Hygiene. It's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, all that. It's in the podcasting umbrella on Patreon of Podcastio, Podcastius, where we talk about sci-fi films, um, Pokemon, Monster Hunter, and there's currently an exclusive there of the first 4 episodes where we talk about Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
I love
We'll,
that show.
we'll get the last 2 finished up before too long. But if anyone wants to throw in a buck or something, you can hear that in some early episodes and stuff. So let's go be free and ride our machines, which in my case is going to be a commuter train. But